Shabbat Shalom. Okay. Shabbat Shalom. No. Normally I come in and get the microphone set up, but for tomorrow, Neil wanted a wired mic, so I installed that early in the week, tested it Thursday night. Seems to work fine.
Great.
So, personally, I think we should be using this all the time.
Okay.
But because of that, I got outvoted. People are afraid that people will trip on it. I think I'm gonna get some air running in here, though. There's no air running. It's gonna get hot. I can feel it. Did you get the email I sent you regarding the keys?
No. Well, I mean, maybe I did. I just have missed emails.
Okay, this was about a week ago.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is you and Andrew have keys which you really don't need anymore.
Yes.
So I want to get those back so that I can give it to the appropriate people after the first of the year.
I don't have them with me, but yes, I will give it to you.
Okay.
Good morning, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, Ed, how are you?
You're different.
You know, it's, what can I say?
So I keep everybody guessing.
Exactly.
Someone
years ago, I was at work and I showed up in and somebody said, what's that all about? I said, well, I was walking and there was on the sidewalk, the Nation of Islam had a recruitment drive, so I signed up and they gave me a I did not roll the scroll during the week, so I'm
Do
going
you
to.
need some help?
That'd be great, thank you. I have, what I started doing is I've taken pictures
That's really clever.
of the scroll for each week.
That's really clever.
And what I've done is, identified where each reading begins.
Oh, that's so good.
So it ought to be easy to find the spot because we know what it's got, especially for this scroll. This scroll does not sync with the Tikkunim, so it's a bit of a guessing game. The other scrolls, the columns are in sync with what the Tikkun shows, but not this one.
Well, this is the kind of thing that if you published it, you could make some serious money, I think. This would be a great demand. I really think so.
The problem is the variability.
Yes, I know.
So,
But
Hatson L, so the top, so the column has got to start, there we go. So
Yep,
Hatson
there it is.
L, and it's like midway down. Vayapum.
You're right there. It's the word before
Yeah,
that.
there we go. Perfect.
Yeah.
It's really like dead center.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Super. How you doing, Ed?
Good.
Good. How's Brian?
Good.
Great. Where are things with lockdown and opening of life and that kind of thing in England?
Last time we talked to him, he was still able to go around. He was
Correct.
finding the issue that he had was that when he moved there, which is just about a year ago, he had to get into the English health system because he was in the Irish health system.
That's right. He wasn't in Northern Ireland. He was in Ireland, which is
Right. So in terms
Free Republic.
Want to put it back or? No. He had to get into their health
The
system.
NHS.
so he could get his vaccines.
You mean he wasn't vaccinated in Ireland?
He moved over before the vaccine was available.
Oh.
Yeah, it was very opportune. I don't know, close to a year to get into their medical system. So now he's covered.
So when you first get to England, whatever the visa terminology is, do you have to pay for private insurance until you get entered into NHS?
If you can get it. Now, Brian was in a different position because he was in Ireland long enough that he actually became an Irish citizen.
Which makes the transfer to England much
A
easier.
little bit easier.
Yeah.
Well, he did that because that way, if for some reason he lost his job, now he could get a job any place in the European Union.
Yes. Yeah.
Which otherwise, he'd have to go through the same rigmarole and getting green cards and all that
Yeah.
nonsense.
I mean, it's similar in this country.
Yeah.
If you have a work visa sponsoring your immigration and you lose the job, bye-bye.
Yeah. So,
I feel like though that because it's in the national interest to get everyone who's resident, regardless of whether they belong or not vaccinated, I mean, here, I think this would be managed, right? If it's basically free, it's not like.
well, I don't know all the rules and regulations.
Yeah, I don't either, so.
Brian is so much into all that, it's unbelievable. I get amazed what he gets into.
I'm afraid that that's gonna be one of those evolutionary survival criteria going forward into the future, is being able to navigate the increasing level of bureaucracy. And that's really not that's not the kind of people who are gonna help the species survive.
Absolutely, and, I had a nightmare of an immigration process, and yet I so often reflect on how fortunate I am, that I was English speaking and educated and had some wherewithal to figure out how to navigate the system, coming from a somewhat Western country, and as opposed to so many other people who are hung out to dry.
Yeah, absolutely. Shelby still works closely with these two families from the Congo. They've been here for 6 or 7 years. Their children are now all fluent in English, and they can't navigate simple things.
Yes,
It's just so complicated. They want to get a mortgage. Oh, holy crow! Without her, I have no idea
absolutely.
what they would be doing.
I mean, yeah. Building credit history in this country when you have none is catch-22. When you don't have it, so you can't build it.
Right.
And the notion to a foreigner that it's a good thing in the society to be able to pay for credit, get credit and pay things off instead of just paying outright, is also counterintuitive to many people. But you can't.
That will come back to one.
Oh, of course. But it's part of how the society works.
You stay there and keep talking.
Okay.
See if this mic is working the way I think it is.
Hello, Ed. I hope you can hear me. I hope this is working. As far as I know, the loop feeds into your hearing device as well. So I hope that we're having luck this morning and that you can hear me.
Thank you so much for helping us. Emails? Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to start you. For your information, because this Hi, Sid. Nice to see you. Shabbat Shalom.
I got here early for a change.
How are you doing?
Great seeing you.
Hi, Karen. Shabbat Shalom. Good to see you.
I'm so sorry.
No need to apologize. I'm glad that you're okay, and I'm glad that you're here, and that's all good. I was running late too, so
I totally slept through my whole room.
you think I haven't done that?
Really?
Yeah.
And I'm number one for the meeting.
Do you want me to just distribute these pages in raw, or are we going to use the book?
I think let's use the book.
Use the book, okay. Good.
What? Yeah, what you say?
Oh, I was saying something to Louis. How are you doing, sir?
Good, thank you.
Good. How's your family?
Still burning. They are well.
Your
they're
daughter's
burning.
doing well?
I'm going to
You still got a
Boston.
date set?
Nice. How are you getting there?
You have a date set for Florida?
Yes.
I don't drive distance.
On Thanksgiving.
It's a long drive to Boston, and it's a boring drive, in my opinion.
Oh,
Well,
You know, it's
Well, I know
compared
it's
to
gonna be for
Albany
months.
is,
Well,
always 4 hours with.
I find it's straight and boring.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Once you get to
My
Albany,
status
I think
is
the drive gets better.
That was a,
But I haven't driven distance in
a dog.
No, there is
6 or
no-
7 years.
It says we're gonna go,
What for?
like I didn't know
Yeah.
when we were going.
The friends are there.
Exactly.
Here are the tickets.
Have you booked your flight yet?
Oh, yeah.
Good, because I've been reading
Oh, we changed our
that
mind.
it's difficult to get flights
Here's-
nowadays.
Here's the
Because the demand is, right,
Yeah.
that's always the,
no, 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 no,
People
grandma.
flying American, and they have problems.
I know exactly what we do,
Cancel
every day
flights.
long.
So we'll see.
But, you're going on Thanksgiving
Nice day,
Day?
it's not snowing anyway.
yes.
Okay.
And I think, I'm not even sure, they're planning at, we're planning to have dinner at one of my grandchildren's homes. I think.
So is it a nonstop? Nonstop flight?
What?
Is it nonstop?
No. Stop off at, I think North Carolina, Charlotte.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, sometime Philadelphia, sometime in Charlotte, this time I think Charlotte.
Well, you'll be with family the whole way, so that's what it's nice.
Yeah. I'm getting to the point where I'm not anxious to fly by myself.
Why is that?
I don't know, I have no idea, it's just getting,
Oh, my God.
Well, I think it's always nice to be with other people.
it's just so convenient to have somebody else worry about.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
There's a lot of details in the trip.
Who's doing Torah today when the dust settles? Is that Cindy or you?
What?
Who's doing Torah today?
Phil is.
Phil, okay, great.
Yes.
We can run a bike.
No, let's see, today. Yes.
Phil, okay, excellent. That's perfect.
There was a sword fight between Cindy and Phil, and then it goes on.
He said there was a sword
I think it's a
fight.
good thing because she's reading Torah now. Seems fair.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Let us begin. Let us open our Siddurim to page 103. 103. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lasech vivina lahavchin ben yom uven laila. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani betzalmoho. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani ben chorin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokef kefufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam roka haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamechim mitzadei gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'asa li kol tzorki. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam ozer Yisrael bigvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oter Yisrael betiv ara. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hanotein la Yahweh koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hama'avir shana me'enai utnuma me'afafai. ותננו היום ובכל יום לכן ולחסד ולרחמים בעיניך ובעיני כל רואינו ותגמלנו חסדים טובים. ברוך אתה אדוני גומל חסדים טובים לעמו ישראל. Let's turn now to page 122. 122. Baruch she'amar v'haya ha'olam, Baruch hu, Baruch oseh v'herishit, Baruch omer v'oseh, Baruch gozer u'mekayem, Baruch merachem al ha'aretz, Baruch merachem al habriot, Baruch meshalem sachar tov lire'av, Baruch Chai La'ad V'Kayam LaNetzach, Baruch Pateh U'Matzil, Baruch Shemo, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam me'elav ha'rachaman. Yachid Chei Ha'olamim melech Meshabach Mufa'ar Adei Ad Shmo HaGadol, Baruch Atah Adonai Melech Mohulal Batish Bachot. I lost the place. Okay. In that case, let us turn to page 145 for Nishmat. Nishmat kol chai tevarech et shimcha Adonai Eloheinu. Baruch kol basar tevarech. Ilufinu male shira kaya mulsonenu rinaka mongala. אנחנו מספיקים להודות לך, אדוני אלוהינו ולעבודנו ואמותינו, ולברך את שמך על אחת מאלף אלפי אלפים וריבי רבבות פעמים הטובות שעשיתם אבותינו ואמותינו והעימנו. ממצרים גאלתנו, אדוני אלוהינו. כל עצמותינו. יד מלך. האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, קונה שמים וארץ, נהללך, נשבחך, נפארך, ונברך את שם קודשך, כאמור לדוד ברכי נפשי, את אדוני וכל קרבי, את שם קודשו. So we're turning now to page 147. We're about to begin with Shacharit. Is there anyone who would like to lead us in Shacharit? Going once, going twice to the final bidder. The middle of that's not the middle, maybe it's a third down, quarter down on page 147 at the red arrow. שוכנד מהרום וקדוש שמו, וכתוב רננו צדיקים באדוני לשרים נאווה תהילה, בפי ישרים תהלל, ובדברי צדיקים תתברך, ובלשון חסידים תתרומם, ובקרב קדושים תתקדש, ובמקלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל, ברינה יתפאר שמך מלכנו בכל דור ודור, שכן חובת כל היצורים לפניך, אדוני אלוהינו, ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, להודות, להלל, לשבח, לפאר, לרומם, להדר, לברך, לעלה ולקלס, על כל דברי שירות ותשבחות, דוד בן ישי, עבדך משיחך. ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו, האל המלך הגדול והקדוש בשמיים ובארץ, כי לך נאה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, שיר ושבחה, הלל וזמרה, עוז וממשלה, נצח, גדולה וגבורה, תהילה ותפארת, קדושה ומלכות, ברכות והודאות מעתה ועד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני, אל מלך גדול בתשבחות, אל ההודעות אדון הנפלאות, הבוחר בשירי זמרה, מלך אל חי העולמים. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Almost. He went to look for.
I'd be willing to learn how to do it if I had some kind of crib sheet about it.
Yeah, that's.
I need to be trained how to do it.
Can do.
I think I might have done it once.
And
I
I'm.
did the Musaf a few times.
I'm confident in your ability to succeed in
Any
it.
imminent prospects?
I need training or retraining or whatever.
I would be more than happy to.
Yes, I want to see if there's anyone.
All right, let us turn in that case to page 150, and we may be seated. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, yotzer or uvorei choshech, oseh shalom uvorei et hakol. Hakol yoduhucha v'hakol yishabchucha, v'hakol yomru ein kadosh k'Adonai, hakol yomru chasela yotzer hakol. האל הפותח בכל יום דלתות שערי מזרח ובוקע חלוני רקיע. אין כערכך ואין זולתך, אפס בלתך ומדומה לך, אין כערכך אדוני אלוהינו, בעולם הזה ואין זולתך, מלכנו לחיי העולם הבא, אפס בלתך גואלנו לימות המשיח, ואין דומה לך, מושיענו לתחיית המתים. אל אדון על כל המעשים, ברוך ומבורך בפי כל נשמה, גודלו וטובו מלא עולם, דעת ותבונה סובבים אותו. המתגאה על חיות הקודש, ונדר בכבוד על המרכבה, זכות ומישור לפני כסאו, חסד ורחמים לפני כבודו. טובים מאורות שברא אלוהינו, יצרם בדעת, בבינה ובהשכל, כוח וגבורה נתן בהם, להיות מושלים בקרב תבל. מלאים זיו ומפיקים נוגה, נאה זיום בכל העולם, שמחים בצאתם וששים בבואם, עושים באימה רצון קונם. פאר וכבוד נותנים לשמות צהלה, ורינה לזכר מלכותו. קרא לשמש ויזרח אור, ראה והתקין צורת הלבנה. שבח נותנים לו כל צבא מרום, תפארת וגדולה, שרפים ואופנים וחיות הקודש. Top of 152. לאל אשר שבת מכל המעשים ביום השביעי. תתברך מושיענו על שבח מעשה ידיך, ועל מאורי אור שעשית יפרוך הסלע. Top of 153. תתברך צורנו מלכנו וגלנו בורא קדושים, ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו. כולם אהובים, כולם ברורים, כולם גיבורים, וכולם עושים באימה וביראה רצון קונם, ובכולם פותחים את פיהם בקדושה וטהרה, בשירה ובזמרה, ומברכים ומשבחים, ומפארים ומריצים, ומקדישים וממליכים. את שם האל המלך הגדול והגיבור והנורא קדוש הוא, וכולם מקבלים עליהם את עול מלכות שמיים זה מזה, ונותנים רשות זה לזה להקדיש ליוצרם בנחת רוח, וששה ברורה ובנעימה קדושה. כולם כאחד עונים ואורים ביראה. קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. באופנים וחיות הקודש ברעש גדול מתנשאים לעומת זרפים, לעומתם משבחים ואומרים, ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. לאל ברוך נימו הותייתנו למלך אל חי וקיים. המחדש בטובו בכל יום תמיד מעשה וראשית כאמור, לעושה אורים גדולים כי לעולם חסדו. אור חדש על ציון תאיר ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו. ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות. אהבה הרבה אהבתנו, אדוני אלוהינו, חמלה גדולה ותרה חמלת עלינו. אהבינו מלכנו בעבור אבותינו, שבטחו בך ותלמדם חוקי חיים. כן תכוננו ותלמדנו. אבינו ואב הרחמן המרחם רחם עלינו. ותן בליבנו להבין ולהשכיל, לשמור וללמוד וללמד. והאר עינינו בתורתך, ודבק ליבנו במצוותיך, ויחד לבבינו לאהבה וליראה את שמך, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, ולא נבוש לעולם ועד, כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו, נגילה ונשמחה, נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך. והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ, ותוליכנו כמו מיות לארצנו, כי אל פועל ישועות אתה. ובנו בחרת מכל עם ולשון, וקרבתנו לשמו הגדול, סלע באמת, להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. והיה עם שמות ששמי למצוותיי. ושמתם את דבריי, ולימדתם אותם מפניכם. ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל בני ישראל, ואמרת עליהם, ועשו להם ציצית על כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם, ונתנו על ציצית הכנף בטיל תכלת, והיה לכם לציצית, וראיתם אותו, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני, ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם, אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם. אדוני אלוהיכם אמת, ויציב ונכון וקיים וישר. אמת אלוהי העולם. לדור ודור הוא קיים ושמו קיים, וכיסון נכון ומלכותו ואמונתו לעד קיימת. ודבריו חיים וקיימים ונאמנים ונחמדים לעד עולם העולמים, על אבותינו ואמותינו ועלינו, על בנינו. אמת ואמונה, חוק ולא יעבור. אמת שאתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, מלכנו מלך אבותינו ואמותינו, גואל אבותינו ואמותינו, יוצרנו צור ישועתנו, פודנו ומצילנו מעולם שמך, אין אלוהים זולתך. עזרת אבותינו ואמותינו אתה הוא מעולם, מגן ומשיח לבניהם, אחריהם בכל דור ודור. אמת אתה הוא, אמת אתה הוא ראשון, ממצרים גאלנו. תהילות לאל עליון ברוך הוא ומבורך, משה ומרים ובני ישראל לך ענו שירה בשמחה רבה, ואמרו כולם מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, נורא תהילות עושה פלא. שירה חדשה שיבחו גאולים לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. צור ישראל קומה בעזרת ישראל, וכדי חינומך יהודה וישראל, גואלנו אדוני צבאות שמו קדוש ישראל, ברוך אתה אדוני על ישראל. So if you are still davening, please do continue and take as much time as you need, while the community turns back to page 159 for the repetition of the Amidah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah האל הגדול והגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גואל לפני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ופוקד ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד דאגה השם. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ויאמר. קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. אז בקול רעש גדול, אדיר וחזק, משמיעים קול, מתנסים לעומת שרפים, לעומתם ברוך יאמרו. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו, ממקומך מלכנו תופיע, ותמלוך עלינו כי מחכים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון? בקרוב בימינו לעולם ועד תשכון. תתקדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, ולנצח נצחים. ועינינו תראנה מלכותך, כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך, על ידי דוד משיח צדקך. ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהיך ציון, לדור ודור הללויה. לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש. ושבחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד, כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. ישמח ישמח משה במתנת חלקו, כי עבד נאמן קראת לו. כליל תפארת בראשו נתת, בעמדו לפניך על הר סיני. שני לוחות אבנים הוריד בידו, וכתוב בהם שמירת שבת, וכן כתוב בתורתך. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, כי 6 ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת וינפש. ולא נתת אדוני אלוהינו לגוי ארצות, ולא הנחלת מלכנו לעובדי פסילים וגם במיוחדו. לא ישכנו ערלים, כי לישראל עמך נתת באהבה לזרע יעקב, אשר בם בחרת עם מקדשי שביעי, כולם יספעו ויתענגו מטובך. והשביעי רצית בו, וקידשתו חמדת ימימות אותו קראת, זכר למעשה וראשית. אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, רצה במנוחתנו, קדשנו במצוותיך, ותן חלקנו בתורתך. סבנו מטובך, ושמחנו בישועתך, וטהר ליבנו לעבדך באמת. והנחילנו אדוני אלוהינו באהבה וברצון שבת קודשך, וינוחו בו ישראל מקדשי שמך. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. רצה אדוני אלוהינו בעמך ישראל ותפילתם, והשבת עבודה לעברי ביתך, ותפילתם באהבה תקבל ברצון, ותהי לרצון תמיד עבודת ישראל עמך. ותחזינה עינינו בשובך לציון ברחמים. ברוך אתה אדוני המחזיר שכינתו לציון. מודים אנחנו לך. הטוב כי לא חלו ורחמך, והמרחם כי לא תמו חסדיך, מעולם קיווינו לך. ועל כולם יתברך ויתרומם שמך מלכנו תמיד לעולם ועד. וכל החיים יודוך סלע וייללו את שמך באמת, האל ישועתנו בעזרתנו סלע. ברוך אתה אדוני, הטוב שמך ולך נאה להודות. אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, ברכנו בברכה מושלשת בתורה כתובה על ידי משה עבדך, האמורה מפי אהרון ובניו, כהנים עם קדושך כאמור. יברכך אדוני וישמרך, יאר אדוני פניו אליך ויחונך, יישא אדוני פניו אליך וישם לך שלום. שים שלום בעולם, טובה וברכה, חן וחסד ורחמים עלינו ועל כל ישראל עמך. ברכנו אבינו כולנו כאחד באור פניך, כי באור פניך נתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו תורת חיים ואהבת חסד וצדקה וברכה ורחמים וחיים ושלום. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל ושלום. Page 167. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעולמה דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחיי חונוב יומי חונוב חיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו, אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ולעולמי עולמיה, יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תאמירן בעלמה ואמרו תתקבל צלותו ונבואותו לכל ישראל קודם אבוהן דבשמיא ואמרו יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו עושה שלום במרומיו הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. Shabbat Shalom and good morning once again, and good morning to those of you who've arrived since the last time I said good morning. Good to see everyone. It has been quite a week in Lake Wobegon. Last weekend I was exposed to someone who is positive with the coronavirus, and discovered just how tricky it is to get tested if you're not displaying symptoms. But all's well, thank God, and the person to whom I was exposed is doing well as well. And just one other piece of good news from my home, Nadav, our now 11-year-old, had a birthday this week, so that's good news, which I'm delighted to share with you. And so let me turn it around and ask if there are any pieces of good news that you'd like to share with us. Birthdays, anniversaries, near misses with viruses, you name it. Sue. Lemba? In Zimbabwe? In any case.
That makes sense. Yeah. So apparently they have some markers to Kohanim, and they keep themselves separate and they don't eat pork. I mean, that's about all he told me, but I said, well, we're going to ask the rabbi if he's heard of this group at all.
I've heard of them. I don't know that much. And my request is that next time you or Phil or anyone hears of a public lecture that could be of interest, spread the gospel, spread the good word. And gospel is it's from the Greek, it means good news. So please share the wealth. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, thank you. So I've heard of them. I don't know much. I really don't know any more than what you've said, quite honestly. Yeah. No. So we watched the movie about a group in northern Africa, Nigeria. What were they called? They're part of a large ethnicity in Nigeria, many of whom consider them, or some of whom consider themselves as Jewish, and now I'm forgetting their name. And no, that wasn't it. Yes. And
Could you repeat that, please?
Dan, say it louder. Yibo? Igbo. Yeah, Igbo. So Igbo has become a fairly large ethnic minority in Nigeria, and there are various different theories of the origins, and there's a sizable portion of this group who hold on to the identity of being of being Jewish. And our Jewish movie club watched a movie about this group. It was really, really interesting. There's and there are other groups. There's a group in Ghana as well. In fact, there's a movie about them too. So it's really interesting. And of course, we know that the Jewish groups in Ethiopia, possibly neighboring Eritrea, as well. And I think I recently heard about something in Sudan, possibly. I'm not. And Uganda for sure. Uganda for sure. Absolutely. There was a book compiled by, he was my neighbor in Newton, and I'm forgetting, director of Hillel at Tufts, Jeff Summit. He's an ethnomusicologist, and he put together this gorgeous book about the Abu Yadaya in Uganda. Yes. Any other good news? Karen?
Well, it's not, well, it's huge for me. I was able to drive my sister home after the orchestra and band.
After what?
Orchestra and band, which is a residence, and we went out for lunch, and these are milestones. Oh, yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yes, Karen was able to have some reunification with sister and be able to drive her, be able to drive her sister, which in itself, as those of us who are familiar with Karen's recent ordeal and surgery on her eyes, is in itself a massive accomplishment. So that's just wonderful, wonderful. Lewis.
Just that we made arrangements to visit my son Charles at college next weekend, so we're excited about that. We haven't seen him in a very long time.
Nice. So as a matter of interest, he's in Wisconsin. What's the weather like compared to here?
I think it's similar right now.
Similar.
Probably colder and snowier.
Yeah.
when time comes.
Yeah.
Wisconsin is
Great.
next door to Minnesota, and in fact, Charles will probably have a lot of friends from the Twin Cities.
Isn't it? It's okay. I'll take your word for it. It's yeah. It's next to Illinois too. No, it's above.
It's above Illinois, but to its west is Minnesota.
I see. Okay. Great. Anything else? Okay. Well, that's a good innings. So, Dan.
Since you're from the southern hemisphere, I often wonder, in the southern hemisphere, do they make globes with the South Pole on top?
Do they make what?
Globes. Globe maps of the world. Do they make it with the South Pole on top?
No. It's the same globe. Judy, yes.
We went to this talk at the JCC by this author named something Ben Zohar, Michael Ben Zohar, and he writes a lot of books, but this was specifically about the Amazon Mossad. And he wrote a book and he gave a talk about this. So if you love to read, who doesn't? It's about the women that were in the Mossad, but even from as early as like the 1900s, early 1900s, and he talked and wrote about how they did spy missions. And it was really very interesting how these women were so important to the Mossad that they couldn't have done as much as they did without them. And at one point they had this, no offense, but sometimes men do dumb things, women do too. And the one...
I don't know what you're talking about.
It's called the human condition.
Thank you. So this woman had, I don't know, not seduced, but she got this, he was a nuclear physicist. And she made him go out to dinner with her, and they got into his room, very clever, and they stole his cell phone. And they saw all the pictures of the nuclear reactor, 36 pictures. And then Israel went in and bombed the whole nuclear reactor.
Oy vey.
And it was like, they didn't even put it in the news because the Arabs were so embarrassed. And then they talked about when they killed.
So I tell you what,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you to pause at that point,
yeah,
and
good.
everyone who wants to know about it and where to find it can speak with Judy afterwards. And if you're interested in watching about women and the Mossad, there's an interesting series dramatization called Tehran, which is available on Apple Plus. Very interesting. Okay, let us, well, a lot of good news, and of course the best news of all is that, thank God, we're here, and it's lovely to be with everyone. Hello at home, if anyone's out there. For those of you who don't know what I just did, I waved at the camera pointing directly at me. And let us turn to page 168. That's 168. As we get ready to take out the Sefer Torah. Just one Torah scroll this morning. This is a regular Shabbat with no additional readings. Ein kamocha va'elohim Adonai ve'ein kema'asecha malchutecha malchut kol olamim umemshaltecha bechol dor vador. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. Adonai oz la'amo yitein. Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. Havharachamim Heitiva virtzoncha et Zion. Tivne chomot Yerushalayim. Tivne chomot Yerushalayim. Ki vecha levad batachnu. Melech el ram venisa, Adon olamim. Vayehi bin soa Aaron, vayomer Moshe, Kuma Adonai, ויפוצו אויביך, וינוסו מזעניך מפניך, כי מציון תצא תורה, כי מציון תצא תורה, ודבר אדוני מירושלים. Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah Torah La'amo Yisrael B'kedushato. Let's turn on page 169 to the top paragraph on the right-hand side, a prayer for goodness. Compassionate Creator, teach me to appreciate the love of my family and friends. May I not be the source of pain or contention, jealousy or needless competitiveness, but may I learn to listen to the heartfelt stirrings of all whom I know and love, and may I help fulfill their needs. Grant health of body and spirit to all. May your Torah fashion me into an instrument of your will and of your peace. Amen. Beyana rachetz velishmei kadisha, kadisha yakira, Anna emartu shpechon, Ye'erava kodama, Detivtach libi ve'oraita, Ve'tashlim mishalin delibi, Ve'libadech olamah Yisrael, Letahavu l'chayin ve'lishlam. Amen. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo.
Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Eloheinu, Kadosh Shemo.
Gadelu Adonai iti, uneromema shemo yachdav. Lecha Adonai hagedula v'hagavura v'hatiferet v'hanetzach v'hahod. Yichol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz, Yichol b'shamayim u'ba'aretz. V'parad Adonai al ma'alachav, v'ha'yisrael v'ha'on melush. Romelu, Adonai Eloheinu, ve'ishtachavu le'adon raglav kadoshu. Romelu, Adonai Eloheinu, ve'ishtachavu le'hakodsho ki kadosh. Adonai Eloheinu. Asleep at the wheel. This morning, we will be reading Parashat Vayetze, which deals with the part that is sandwiched between the episodes of Jacob and Esau. We have learned about the earlier part of family life in the Isaac and Rebekah family, the struggle between these two brothers and the way the family is pulled apart. And then next week, we will read about them reuniting and how fraught that occasion is. In this middle section, we don't really learn about Esau at all, and yet we learn about Jacob encountering other trials and tribulations with someone, with a character who is downright corrupt, someone who makes his life a bit of a living hell as well. And we learn about how he confronts and deals with adversity bravely, stoically, overcoming and rising to success nonetheless. So that is what we will look at this morning, and of course we will speak about it a bit more in a few minutes' time. So, our first Ole, I'm assuming, is not a Kohen, and you're not a Levi, you're Israel? Yeah. Okay. In that case, I'm going to call you Rishon. Vayazor veyagen v'yoshir l'chol ha'chosim ba'o v'nomar amen. Ha'kol avu godel Eloheinu v'nochavod l'Torah. Rishon Krav Ya'amod Rishon Baruch Shenatan Torah Lamo Yisrael B'Kedushato Ve'atem madbekim b'Adonai Elohechem Chayim kolchem hayom. Before Dan recites the bracha, Dan is called up to the first aliyah, which will be read by Bernie. The second aliyah will be read by Karen. We find ourselves on page 181, verse 17.
The second line from the bottom.
By the way, Sid Marcus is a lady.
Yeah, there were two ladies.
Huh?
I don't understand.
Yeah.
Are they twins?
No.
I need to get serious.
Oh, it's midway. It begins. It's exactly midway. Vayakom.
Yaakov.
Uh,
Yaakov.
Is it Vayakom Yaakov?
Yeah.
Okay. Starting over there. Yeah.
Oop, okay.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamborach le'olam va'ed. Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et tochato. Baruch ata Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayakom Yaakovi. Yaakov vayisa et banav et nashav al hagmalim. V'nahag et kol mitnehu. V'et kol rechusho asher rachash miknei kenyano asher rachash b'padan Aram. Lavo Yitzchak Aviv Artsa Canaan Lavan Halach Zos et Sono V'tignov Rachel et Atrofim Asher Leviha V'gnov Yaakov et Lev Lavan Ha'aromi Avli Higilo Kiboreachu V'yivrachu V'chol Asher Lo V'yakam V'yavor et Anahar Vayisa et pan, Vayasem et panav har havilah.
Baruch ata Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam. Asher natan lanu torat emet. V'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch ata Adonai noten ha'torah. Amen.
We'll continue on page 182, verse 22.
Ya'amor Sheni. What do you say?
I'm marking the spot
Yeah.
for her. Karen, it's where you gotta start right there.
Are you glad?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't start yet, he hasn't done the bracha.
No, I'm not gonna start.
Okay, so Karen is pointing to where.
Baruch hu et Adonai hamborach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hamborach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten ha'torah.
Amen.
Vayugad v'lavan Vayom hashlishi Ki bo Barak Yaakov, Vayakeach et Achav, Haz, how do you read it? Wait a minute. Wait, I lost my place. Imo, I got it. Vayirdov acharav derech shvivi yamin vayad beit oto behar hagiliad vayov Elohim Elavan ha'arami v'halom halayla v'yomer lo hasher Isha merecha pen tidaber im Yaakov metov hara.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emes v'chayei olam notah b'sachenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yashar koach to both of you. Yashar koach to both of you.
Yeah.
Who is the third aliyah? That would be
Adra.
Ya'amod Shlishi. So the third aliyah continues on page 182, verse number 25. It begins at the end of the line.
Adra, I left off at Adra.
The Yaseg Lavan. There we go. It's exactly it.
Yep.
I don't know where that, oh, there it is, right there.
Baruch Hu Adonai HaBaruch.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaBaruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Asher Baka Banu Mikol Ha'amin V'natan Lanu Et Torah. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayaseg Lavan et Yaakov v'Yaakov teka et ohlo b'har v'Lavan teka et Chav b'har HaGilad. Vayomer Lavan liYaakov me asita v'tignov et levavi v'tin heg et benotai kishvuyot charev lama nechvata levroach v'genav v'tignov oti v'lo igar tali v'ashlechacha b'simcha v'shirim v'tov v'chinor lo natasti l'shek levanai v'levenotai ata hiskalta aso Yesh le'el yadi lasot imachem ra v'lehei avichem emesh amar elai le'mor Hishamar lecha v'daber im Yaakov mitov adra v'yata halach halachta ki nechsafta leveit avicha lama ganafta et Elohai v'yan Yaakov v'yomer Lavan ki areti ki amarti pentigzol et benot tayech me'imi im asher timtza et Elohecha lo yechem neged achenu haker lecha mai madi kach lach lo yada Yaakov ki Rachel ganaftam v'yavo Lavan b'yol Yaakov v'oel Leah uve'oel shtei hamahot v'lo matzat v'yetze me'ol Leah v'yavo b'ol Rachel ורחל לקחה את התרפים, ותשימם לאחר הגמל, ותשב עליהם, וימסס לבן את כל האוהל, ולא מצא. ותאמר לאביה, אל ייחר בעיני אדוני, כי לא אוכל לקום מפניך, כי דרך נשים לי, ותחפש, לא מצא את התרפים. את התרפים.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah chames v'hayom nata b'sochenu. Baruch atah Adonai nosein haTorah.
Amen. Ya'amod.
Is it where you want it?
Trafim.
We'll continue on page 184, verse
Yep.
36.
Yep.
Baruch es Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Barak Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'nasan lanu es Torah. Baruch atah Adonai nosein haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. V'yichar Yaakov v'yar Lavan v'yan Yaakov v'yomer lelavan ma pishti ma chatati ki dalakta acharai ki mashasta et kol keli ma matzata mikol keli bitecha simko neged achai v'achecha v'yachichu ben sheneinu zeh 20 shana anochi imach rechelech ve'izecha lo kilu ve'eli tzonecha lo achalti trefa lo heveti elecha anochi achatena miadi tibakshena ינובתי יום גונותי לילה, הייתי ביום אכלני חורב וקרח בלילה, ותדד שנתי בעיניי, זה לי 20 שנה בביתך, עבדתיך 14 שנה בשתי בנותיך ו6 שנים בצונך, ותחלף את משכורתי 10 מונים. לולי אלוהי אבי, אלוהי אברהם, ופחד יצחק היה לי, כי אתה ריקם שלחתני את עוני ואת יגיע כפיי, ראה אלוהים ויוכח אמש.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher nasan lanu Torah samas v'chayei olam nata b'sochenu. Baruch atah Adonai nosein haTorah.
Amen. Ta'amod chamishit.
We'll be picking up on page 185, verse 43.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Barak Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vaya'an Lavan, vayomer el Yaakov, habanot בנותיי והבנים בניי והצאן צאני וכל אשר אתה רואה לי הוא ולבנותיי מה אעשה לאלה היום או לבניהן אשר ילדו ואתה לך nichrata, v'rid ani va'ata, v'haya le'ed beini uvenecha, v'yikach Yaakov aven, v'rimeha matzeva. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah temet v'chayei olam notah b'tocheinu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Amen.
Who is the sixth aliyah? Ta'amot shishit.
Page 185, verse 46. On the last line.
Baruch et, I don't know, Baruch et Adonai HaBaruch.
Baruch Adonai Baruch L'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaBaruch L'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bacha banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayomer Yaakov le'achav liktu avanim, vayechu avanim vaya'asu gal, vayochelu sham al hagal, vayikra lo lavan yagar sahaduta, v'Yaakov kara lo Gilad, Vayomer Lavan, Hagal haza'ed beni uvenecha hayom, al ken kara shemo galed, v'hamitzpah asher amar, yitzef Adonai beni uvenecha, ki nisater ish mere'ehu, im tu'aneh et benotai, V'im tikach nashim al benotai en ish imanu re'ei Elohim et beni uvenecha.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam notah b'tocheinu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Shukrach.
Yashar koach to God.
Yashar koach to you.
Let's offer a Misha Beiracha, a blessing for healing of all of those who are suffering, who seek healing and recovery and wellness, whether it's wellness of their soul and spirit or wellness of their body. And please do feel free to add any names of people who you are particularly concerned about at this time. Misha Beirach Avotenu Abraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov ve'imotenu Sarah Rivka Rachel v'Leah Hu yivarech v'yirapeh et hacholim Yitzchak Yosef ben Sarah Elizabeth Crummins Abraham ben Rachel Harav Chana bat Aaron v'Yael Nick Aruda Harriet Driss Mendel Moshe ben David William Stewart Adam ben Fratel Eli Shira bat Sarah Hadassah bat Sarah, Beverly Malowitz, Judy bat Josephine, Avraham ben Tehila, Rebbetzin Chaya Necha bat Rivalea, Jeff Benowitz, Chaya Sora bat Yehudit, Mark Donahue, Yisrael ben Batya, Yaakova Basha bat Leah Devora, Moshe Aryelev Binyamin ben Ruth, Sifra Kala bat Zipporah, Joe McManus, Devora bat Esther, Jed Salisbury, Stephanie Litvak, Miriam bat Shoshana Leah, Wendy bat Sarah, Lori Davis, Sarah bat Ben Zion Veshoshana, Chaya Malka bat Chaviva, Scott Allen, Judy Schulman, Baruch ben Rivka Gittel, Miriam bat Yehudit, Carol Schott, Shendel Chosia bat Bracha Esther, Howard Brill, Pinchas ben Chava v'Chaim, Sarah bat Dina v'David, Yael bat Devorah, Aliza bat Chaya u'Mordechai, Karen Schaefer, Elana bat Daniela, Chava bat Yosef ve'Ilona, ve'Shoshana bat Sarah. Judy.
Jerry Sullivan, Jerry Messinger, Amanda Gately, Amanda G.
Mike Chris. Nancy Ryan.
הקדוש ברוך הוא ימלא רחמים עליהם, להחזיקם ולרפאותם, וישלח להם מהרה רפואה שלמה מן השמיים, רפואת הנפש ורפואת הגוף, בתוך שאר החולים, וחזק את ידי העוסקים בצורכיהם, שבת היא מלזעוק ורפואה קרובה לבוא, השתה בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ונאמר אמן.
The seventh Leah is going to pick up on page 186, verse 51.
יעמדו שביעי. So, before we begin the bracha, Cindy's going to show you where the reading actually begins in the scroll, and it is right there. So take the tzitzit, and there you go, and we have liftoff.
Baruch Hu es Adonai Hamvarach.
Baruch Adonai Hamarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'nasan lanu es Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Nesin HaTorah.
Amen. ויאמר לבן ליעקב, הנה הגל הזה, והנה המצבה אשר יריתי ביני וביניך, ביניך עד הגל הזה, וידע המצבה, כי אם אני לא אעבור אליך את הגל הזה, ואם אתה לא תעבור אליי את הגל הזה ואת המצבה הזאת לרעה. אלוהי אברהם ואלוהי נחור ישפטו בינינו. אלוהי אביהם וישבע יעקב בפחד אביו יצחק. ויזבח יעקב זבח בהר ויקרא לאחיו לאכול לחם ויאכלו לחם וילínu בהר. וישכם לבן בבוקר וינשק לבניו ולבנותיו ויברך אתם וילך וישב לבן למקומו ויעקב הלך לדרכו ויפגעו בו מלאכי אלוהים ויאמר יעקב כאשר ראה מחנה אלוהים זה, ויקרא שם המקום ההוא מחניים.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher nasa lanu Torah emes v'chayei olam notar b'sochenu. Baruch atah Adonai Nesin HaTorah.
Amen. So, interesting thing is that the numbers don't line up. But the map too begins there.
Okay. Very good.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
אמן.
יברח ירותיו ימליך מלכותי. בחיי חון וביומי חון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל. בעגלה ובזמן קהריל ואמרו אמן.
יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ולעולמיה יתברך.
יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי לקודשה לעילה מכל ברכתה ושירתה ושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירה ויאמר ויאמרו אמן. יעמוד מפטיר.
Maftir portion begins at the beginning of
Actually,
chapter
Yeshkim
32.
represents
on page
Yeshkim.
187.
It is in the middle of the line. There it is.
Oh, I've gone too
Baruch Hu Adonai HaMvorach.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Olam. Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten Torah.
Amen.
Amen. וישכם לבן, בבוקר וינשק לבניו ולבנותיו ויברך אתהם וילך וישב לבן למקומו ויעקב הלך לדרכו ויפגעו בו מלכי אלוהים ויאמר יעקב כאשר ראה מחנה אלוהים זה ויקרא שם המקום ההוא מחניים.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Olam Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet B'chayei Olam Natan B'tuchenu Baruch Atah Adonai Noten Torah.
Amen. Interestingly, the numbers of the verses don't line up from the Lua to the. It says that Shabbat goes 87 verse 3, but verse 3 is Vayishlach, it's next week, etc. It happens a few times. Yep. Ya'amod Hamagbiya Ta'amod Hagolelet. So as Ed and who is it? Adi and Judy are making their way down to lift up the Sefer Torah and to tie it and put it to rest on the table. We are going to bless everyone who has participated in this morning's Torah service. Everyone who read from the Torah, everyone who received an aliyah to the Torah. Ed is already standing. Ed carried the Sefer Torah, so we bless everyone who has participated this morning. Mi sheberach avatenu Avraham, Yitzchak v'Yaakov, ve'imotenu Sarah, Rivka, Rachel v'Leah, hu yivarech et kol eleh she'alu hayom lichvod hamakom v'lichvod haTorah v'lichvod haShabbat. HaKadosh Baruch Hu yishmor otam ve'et kol mishpachotehem ve'yishlach bracha v'atzlacha bechol ma'aseh yedehem im kol Yisrael acheihem ve'achyotehem ve'nomar Amen.
Okay.
Just lift it and you'll put the stand on that.
Okay, so would you want the strand first? Okay.
Perfect. So, if you've not been in our services for a few weeks, or maybe a couple of months, you might be surprised by what is happening. You might expect the Torah to be lifted up, carried over to the chair, and then for the tying to happen at the chair. And we have spoken about this, that when the Torah is so close to the beginning or the end, and it's very heavily weighted, it's not that easy for most of us for most of us to pick it up. And we don't want anyone to endanger themselves or to be at risk of dropping the Sefer Torah. So this is what we are doing to keep everyone safe, and it is a legitimate alternative, and we will stick with it as long as we need to. So at this point, Ed will put it down on the table, and then once the Torah scroll is down, we may sit down. Vezot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael afi Adonai leyad Moshe. And we may sit down. This morning's Haftarah is a reading from the book of the prophet Hosea. It can be found on page 195. It begins at verse number 7, and we are going to be reading, as I suspect, the Sephardi selection of verses, which means that we start off at chapter 11, verse 7, and read through chapter 12, verse 12. So that begins on page 195.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'neviim tovim v'ratzav v'devreihem hanamarim ba'emet Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'torah u'Moshe avdo u'Yisrael amo u'v'vayei ha'amet v'tzedek.
Amen.
Ve'amit Elohim le'mishvotai ve'al yikrahu yachad lo yiromeim eich et nachaha Ephraim emagenacha Yisrael eich eten Amda Asimcha Ketzivoim Ne'efach Alai Libi Yachad Nichmeru Nimuchi Lo E'esech Haron Api Lo Ashuv Lishachet Ephraim Ki El Anochi Velo Ish Bekirber Kadosh Velo Avo Be'ir Acharei Adonai Yehu Ke'aryeh Yis'ag Ki Hu Yis'ag Ve'yechardu Bani Miyam Ve'yechardu Chetzipor Mimitzrayim Uchyona Me'eretz Hashur Behoshevatim Al Betehem Ne'um Adonai Sevavuni Bechachash Ephraim Umirma Beit Yisrael Bihuda Od Radim El V'im Kedoshim Ne'eman Ephraim Ruach V'Rodev Kadim kol hayom kezav vashod yarbeh uvrit im ashur yechrotu Vashem el Mitzrayim yuval Variv ladunoi im Yehudah Uliv kohod al Yaakov kidrachav Kema alalav yeshiv lo Babeten akav et achiv uvono Sarah et Elohim V'yasahar El Malach V'yuchal Bacha V'yitachen Lo Beit El Yimtzanu V'sham Yedaber Imanu V'Adonai Elohei Hatzvaot Adonai Zachro Ve'ata Ve'elohecha Tashuv Chesed Umishpat Shemor Ve'kaveh El Elohecha Tamid Kenan Beyado Me'oznei Mirma La'ashok Ahev Vayomer Ephraim Ach Asarti Matzati On Li Kol Yegiai Lo Yimtzeuli Avon Asher Chet Ve'anochi Adonai Elohecha Me'eretz Mitzrayim Od Oshivecha Be'elo Be'ahalim Ki Me'o Moed V'dibarti al Hanevi'im Ve'anochi chazon hirbeti uveyad hanevi'im admeh im gilad aven ach shaveh hayuhu bar Gilgal shevarim zibechu gaham Mizbechotam kegalim ad talome sadai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam tzur kol amim tzadik b'chol hadorot el hane'eman haomer ve'oseh hamedaber mekayem Shekol devarav emek v'tzedek ne'eman atahu Adonai Eloheinu v'namin devarecha v'devar echad medivarecha achor lo yashuv rekam ki el melech ne'eman v'rachaman ata baruch ata Adonai ha'elaneman bechol devarav Rachem al Tzion ki hivet chayenu ve'lavut nefesh toshia b'mehera b'yameinu Baruch atah Adonai Lasmiach Tzion bevaneha Samcheinu Adonai Eloheinu Be'eliyahu hanavi avdecha Umalchut Beit David Mashichecha b'mehera yavo V'yagel libenu al kiso lo yeshev zar v'lo yinchu od acharim et kevodo ki v'shem kadsho nishbata lo shelo yikbeh le'ro le'olam va'ed baruch atah Adonai Magen David al ha-Torah ve'al avodah ve'al nevi'im ve'al yom ha-Shabbat hazeh shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu l'kedush shalom menucha l'kavod l'tifaret al ha-kol Adonai Eloheinu Adonachnu modim lach mirachim otach yitbarak shimcha Befi kol chai tamid leolam va'ed Baruch ata Adonai
Baruch Shemo
Mikadesh HaShabbat
Yashar Koach, Bill.
Good Shabbos.
Shabbat Shalom.
Please join me as we read the alternative prayer for the community on page 176 in the column to the left. May the one who blessed our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah, bless this holy congregation, men and women, sons and daughters, and all that is ours. May it be your will to bless us, to hear our voices raised in prayer, and to protect us from any trouble and difficulty. Spread over us the divine canopy of peace, and plant within us love and unity, peace and friendship. Banish all hate among us. May the words of Torah be fulfilled. Do not wrong one another, but fear your God, that you may dwell upon the land securely. And may it be your will. And let us say Amen.
On page 178, please read alternately a prayer for peace. May we see the day when war and bloodshed cease, when a great peace will embrace the whole world.
Then nation will not threaten nation, and the human family will not again know war.
For all who live on earth shall realize we have not come into being to hate or to destroy. We've come into being to praise, to labor, and to love.
Compassionate God, bless the leaders of all nations with the power of compassion.
Fulfill the promise conveyed in Scripture. I will bring peace to the land, and you shall lie down, and no one shall terrify you.
I will rid the land of vicious beasts, and it shall not be ravaged by war.
Let justice and righteousness flow like a mighty stream. Let God's peace fill the earth as the waters fill the sea, and let us say Amen.
Please join me responsibly for Ashrei on page 181. Ashrei Yoshvei Veitecha Od Yehalucha Selah.
Ashrei Am Shekachad Loho, Ashrei Am Shadonai Eloha.
Tehillah LeDavid, Aron Limecha Elohai HaMelech, V'arvacha Shemacha Le'olam Va'ed. Gadol Adonai Umhulal Me'od, V'li Gadulato En Cheker. Chadar Kavod Odecha, V'divrei Niflotecha Asicha. Secher Rav Tuvcha Yabi'u, V'tzidkatacha Yaranenu. Tov Adonai Lakol, V'rachamav Al Kol Ma'asav. Kivod Malachutecha Yomeru, Uguvuratecha Yadaberu. Malachutecha Malachut Kol Olamim, Umemshatecha B'chol Dor Vador. Einei chol elecha yasaberu, v'ata noten lachem et achlam be'ito.
ומשביע לכל חי רצון.
צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו, וחסיד בכל מעשיו.
קרוב אדוני לכל קורביו, וכל אשר יקראו באמת.
רצון יראיו יעשה, ואת שלוותם ישמע ויושיעם.
שומר אדוני את כל אוהביו, ואת כל הרשעים ישמיע.
תהילת אדוני ידבר פיו, ויברך כל בשר שם קדשו לעולם ועד, ואנחנו נברך יה, מעתה ועד עולם. הללויה.
Yashar Koach. So, let us all rise, if it's comfortable for us to do so, if it's possible for us to do so. We turn to page 183, and we are going to return the Torah to the Ark now. Yehalelu et Shem Adonai, ki nizkav shemo levato, hodo valeret, v'shamayim, vayaren keren leyamo, tehila lechol chasidav, livnei Yisrael, am kerovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Mizmor leDavid, avul Adonai v'levi, avul Adonai kavod va'oz, avul Adonai kavod shemo, ishtachatu Adonai be'adrat kodesh, kol Adonai alamayim, elakavod yirim, Adonai alamayim rabim, kol Adonai ba'aros, kol Adonai be'adam, kol Adonai shomerim, vayashaber Adonai et avnei Adon, vayargidem kemo egel, Lebanon v'Sirion kemo ben re'emim, kol Adonai yotzel ha'amotesh, kol Adonai yavim midbar, yavim Adonai midbar kadesh, kol Adonai yechol v'yayot, vayechesov ye'arot, u'bechalo kulo merkavot, Adonai lamahu yashar, vayeshev Adonai melech le'olam, Adonai yoz le'yamo yitein, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom, uvnucho yomar, shuv Adonai Ki lekach tov natati lachem, Torati al tazovu, eitz chayim hi, lamachazikim ma, v'tom leha, ma'ushar deracheha, darchei Noam, v'chol nativoteha, shalom. Ashivenu Adonai, elecha v'nashuva, kadesh yameinu, keketem, lai la lai 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 lai, ya lai lai ya lai 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 lai, ya la lai 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 la lai, ya la lai 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 lai, ya la lai 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 lai, ya lai lai ya lai 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 lai, ya la lai lai Shabbat Shalom. Again, if I may just speak to one person for a moment. No one else listen, because and without wanting to make you feel like I'm picking you out. Malachi, number one, it's good to see you. Number two, your memory is better than the rest of ours. On the other hand, you have less to remember. But what you may remember from the last time you were here is that there used to be food after the service. There isn't going to be food this morning. It's a COVID thing, and we are looking forward to the time that there will be food. I just wanted to point that out so that you can, get a head start on your disappointment and start feeling it now. And just one other thing I wanted to tell you, Malachi, is yesterday I thought about you because I met another New York Yankees fan. So my point is, you're not the only one. So, there are, believe it or not, other people who support the Yankees. So go figure. Who knew? Who knew that there are other people who support the Yankees? Certainly not in my home. But, it takes all kinds. Okay. Shabbat Shalom. I mentioned earlier, and I've mentioned it before in years gone by at this time, when we have been in this part of the Torah landscape, reading about Jacob and Esau, that it would appear to be a very, very cruel separation, distinction, bifurcation of two children. How could Torah possibly do this? How can it present this to us? And then we have to relate to Torah as a moral source, a moral authority. And I've offered you numerous different ways of looking at it over the years. One of them, theory of my own, is that twins in literature sometimes are to be understood as a single person. Yes, you have two people, but that they are presented as polar opposites that are alive in all of us. They're presented as contradictions alive in all of us. Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. It's one person, but completely different personas and conflict within a single human being. And so I've suggested that possibly that is one way that we could read Jacob and Esau as representative of the different aspects of ourselves that sometimes even might have difficulty getting along with each other. That's one possibility. Certainly a much more mainstream view is that we look at this as a paradigm of good versus evil, good that triumphs over evil, and that takes the birthright, because that is ultimately what is intended to happen, so that the right character, the correct character, can inherit the Brit, the covenant between God and Abraham first, and God and Isaac, and become our leader. So it's this paradigm of how do good and evil work and operate in this world, and what are the tensions between them. And so we read about them last week. We're in the sandwich in the middle this morning where we don't read about Esau, and we will read about Esau again next week. And we will see this phenomenon playing out. However, this morning we do read about a character who has power over Jacob, who treats him abysmally, who is possibly representative of evil too, certainly of corruption, of gross unfairness. He is a leader, he is a power holder, and Jacob is subject to his will and to his whims. And Jacob is treated awfully, and we see how Jacob endures, how Jacob overcomes, how Jacob is stoic, how Jacob rises up nonetheless, and asserts his rights and dignity. In the end, it takes a long time, but he gets there. And these notions of leaders and what they have to offer us and how their personalities and natures influence the kind of leadership that they give. The notion of paradigms, good and evil, it's black, it's white, there's no gray in between, is possibly where the text becomes somewhat really problematic for us. Yes, some of us are uncomfortable. We find this bifurcation between the two characters distasteful. But for me, the black or whiteness of it all, the extremities, the polar opposites, that is where it becomes a bit troublesome for me in terms of looking at this as a text, as looking at this as illustrative, as pedagogical. You know, how do we apply this to the real world, where people and characters and leaders are not all good or all bad for the most part. For the most part. You know, we can all think, and I'm not even talking about recent history. I don't even want to say his name in a shul, but thinking of the Second World War, Germany, I struggled to find the good in him. I haven't got there yet. So there's a case of black or white. For the most part, we live in the gray space in between the black or the white. And to what extent do these paradigms and this text prepare us for that? So the first example that I want to give is something that I feel bad about, because I was remiss in not bringing this up a few weeks ago. When General and then Secretary of State Colin Powell died, it really was my responsibility to honor his memory and to honor the outstanding contribution that he made to our country as a leader in various different realms, and to include him in our prayers. And it's slipped my mind. I have no better excuse than that. I didn't think of it, and that was wrong. He made an outstanding contribution to our country over and over. He grew up in difficult circumstances as a black person in this country, certainly not with any financial privilege. He wasn't even a good student in school. And yet, look what he became. And look what he symbolized: tenacity, determination, honesty, dignity. And yet, he's not all either black or white, because then there was the episode which he knew would be remembered and invoked after he had left us, where he defended a political case at the United Nations that turned out to be hollow. And he knew that he would be remembered for that. He offered himself with all good conscience before doing that, and he was used and abused and sacrificed in order to make someone else's case, and his reputation was besmirched. And what did he do after that? He expressed his sincere regret for that incident. And I, for one, have no trouble believing and accepting his sincerity. So here you've got this leader who's not all perfect or all bad. He was great for the most part, and then there was this one mark against him, which he knew was a mark against him, and for which he expressed sincere apology. And then I think this week of another leader who had a significant impact on my life as a South African. Former President F.W. Frederick Willem de Klerk, who died, who is not an uncomplicated character. He was born into, he has real yichus in the apartheid world. His father was a cabinet minister. He himself was a cabinet minister, oh heavens, I think of security, and played a significant role in the perpetuation of apartheid and in the prosecution of apartheid and all that it did to the people of South Africa, for which he was personally responsible for a long time. And then he became president, and in a move that has no historical precedent, none, he stood up and said, "We are going to give our power away." No historical precedent for that. And he paved the way to bring apartheid to an end and to change South Africa fundamentally. And then, a few years after that, he and Nelson Mandela jointly were nominated for Nobel Peace Prizes. And there was a lot of discussion in South Africa, no doubt beyond. Should this man get a peace prize? Should this person who perpetuated apartheid and the crimes of inhumanity, should this man get a peace prize? And others would say, but look what he did. Despite that, look what he did. He said apartheid has got to end. It's got to stop. We can't keep this up any longer. And on the one hand, we would like to believe, to embrace him fully and throw our arms around him and his memory and say that here was a guy who understood apartheid was wrong. I don't know that he understood apartheid was wrong, quite honestly. I think he understood that it was killing the country. I think he understood that the country could not afford it any longer. Financially couldn't afford it. It was bleeding the country dry. And so for that reason, if none other, it had to end. But I don't know that he ever really saw that it was wrong. And that began to affect his legacy before he died. And just a couple years ago, he made some statement, I don't know the details of it, that evoked a lot of upset in the country, that it would appear that he didn't have any sense of regret for what had happened. And this week, after he died, a video recording was released in which he said, "This will be the last you ever hear from me." And I want to make it clear that I regret the damage and the harm and the indignity that was caused by apartheid. I didn't hear him say, and it was a bad system. In fact, he said, what the world chose to continue calling apartheid, what we referred to as a policy of separate development that we really believed could work. He never said, even in this video right at the end, and I can see that it was wrong. He said, "I'm sorry if it caused hurt and harm." It's like if Linda and I have an argument, and Linda and I behave abysmally, And Linda says, this is terrible, Michael, how can you do this? And I say, gee, Linda, I'm sorry if you're feeling hurt. As opposed to, Linda, I can see what I did was wrong. It's different. It's very different. Should he have received the award? Yes, he should have. Because what he did was truly historic. And without him, what price might the country have continued to pay for apartheid for how much longer? He was tremendously brave, and that needed to be recognized. In Judaism, we believe in the capacity and the facility for all of us to look inside of our souls, to say, we have done wrong. And we need and would like to apologize, and we need and would like to start over. And we do that every year publicly. Certainly Judaism offers us the opportunity to do it every day privately. So if anyone is receptive to the possibility for him to do that, it has to be us. I just don't know that he ever did that. I don't know that he did it. And so, I apologize for leaving you maybe faltering or not with any strong conclusion. But while our texts offer us sterlingly clear examples of black and white, of the polar opposites, they don't always help us deal with the gray space in between. And this is where we will be stuck. Certainly with this man's legacy, and no doubt with others in future as well. And that, I guess, without wanting to sound trite or flippant, is really part of the complexity of life. Shabbat Shalom. Let us turn to page 184. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabba be'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei becha hayechon uvyomechon uvchayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala uvizman kahariv ve'imeru amen Yehi shmei rabba mevorach le'olam ulol me'ol mayam יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דעה מהירן ביולמה ואימרו אמן. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim ve'Konei Hakol, ve'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, ומביא גואל לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה מלך עוזר ופוקד ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ופוקד שרה אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם מכלכל חיים בחסד מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומידו מלך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. נעריצך ונקדישך כסוד שיח שרפי קודש, המקדישים שמך בקודש, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ויאמר. קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. כבודו מלא עולם, משרתיו שואלים זה לזה, איה מקום כבודו, לאומתם ברוך יאמרו. ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו, ממקומו יפן ברחמים, ויחונם עם יחדים שמו, ערב ובוקר בכל יום תמיד, פעמיים באהבה שמה אומרים. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד, הוא אלוהינו, הוא אבינו, הוא מלכנו, מושיענו, והוא ישמיענו מרחמיו שנית לעיני כל חי, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור. ימלוך אדוני אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור, הללויה. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש. ושפחך אלוהינו מפינו לא ימוש, לא ימוש לעולם ועד. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גודלך, כי אל מלך גדול, גדול וקדוש, גדול וקדוש אתה. יא לה 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 לה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. תיקנת שבת. page 203. Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shemei Rabbah, be'yalma divrach Yirotei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon of yomechon of chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'yimeru. Yehei Shemei Rabbah mevorach, le'yolam olol me'yol maya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yit'aleh v'yit'alal Shmei d'Kudesha. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nachamata da'amiran be'alma v'yimeru. Titkabal tzloto nuvoto d'chol Yisrael kodam avohun divishmaya v'yimeru. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimeru. Ose shalom bimrumav u'ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru. Amen. Ein keloheinu, ein kadonenu, ein kemalkeinu, ein kemoshienu. Mich Eloheinu, mich Adonenu, mich Malkeinu, mich Moshienu. Nodel Eloheinu, nodel Adonenu, nodel Malkeinu, nodel Moshienu. Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu. Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Shektiru Avoteinu, Lefanecha et Ketoret Hasamim. Aleinu leshabeach la'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגופי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, ככתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום והשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. על כן נקבל לך אדוני. כי המלכות שלך היא לעולמי תמלוך בכבוד, ככתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. In the week ahead, the following yortzites will be observed in our community as we honor the lives of Bill Fogelman, Myrna Lutsky, Benny Cohen, Lee Rosenthal, Mildred Levy, Eli Rothstein, and Shirley Schneidman. We also remember the lives of loved ones of our community and former members of ours who have passed away within the space of the past year, and that those include Milt Smith, Earl Schwartz, Judy Eisenstadt, Linda de la Cruz, Shirley Grossman, Marsha Greenberg, Selma Fleissig, and in the past weekend, the burial will take place tomorrow for Annette Applebaum. Are there any other yortzites which I've omitted? Mourner's Kaddish can be found on page 207. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach hirotei v'yamlich malchotei, b'chayei chonov yomeichon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kariv v'meru amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam olamei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei dekudsha richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechamata, da'amiran be'alma v'yimaru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimaru amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Announcements.
Let's see, Havdalah is at 6. We have the movie club Wednesday. Well, that's not right. That's in the past. Okay, kosher baked goods for the Jewish Soldiers Project. We're collecting on Sunday morning. We also have a congregational meeting here on Sunday morning or via Zoom. You can get the Zoom link if you like. Let's see. There's a Board of Trustees meeting Monday, November 15th if you wish to attend. Guests are welcome. The next services, next Shabbat, will be in the TBK chapel, so they'll be accessible on the first floor. On Hanukkah, we're going to have a party on Saturday, December 4th in the evening, including Havdalah. And let's see, we also have our annual congregational meeting, December 12th. So please save the date for that, and I'm looking forward to seeing all of you tomorrow. Let's see, Howard Brill and Bonnie Abrams are teaching Kollel courses this fall, so contact us for details, and if you need a ride to services next week, please call the office. Yes?
Is Hanukkah in person?
Yes. We don't know about food yet, but it will be in person. It will be here. There will be games. There will be joy. There will be lighting. There will be Havdalah. So we're not sure about food. There might be food. That's up to congregation.
December 4th.
Saturday night.
Saturday, December 4th. Okay, in honor of our veterans, and I know there's at least 2 here, I'm going to sing Adon Olam to the tune of Yankee Doodle Dandy. Adon Olam Asher Malach, B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra, Le'et Nasa B'chav Sokol, Azai Melech Shemo Nigra, Ve'acharei Klifot HaKol, Levado Yimlok Nora, Ve'hu Haya Ve'hu Yova, Ve'hu Yibati Farah, Ve'hu Echad Ve'en Sheni, L'ham Shilo L'habira, V'li Reshi, V'li Taklit, V'lo Ha'oz V'hamizra, V'hu Eli V'chagoli, V'tzur Chevli V'etzara, V'hu Nisi Almanosli, Menakosi b'yom ekra. B'yado lafchid ruchi b'ed ishan v'a'ira v'im ruchi gaviyati adono li v'lo ira.
Shabbat shalom.
Thank you, I'm sorry for all that melodrama surrounding this.
Well, for that matter, I'm sorry too.
No, I think it's
my
good.
red.
No, this will be good.
Oh, that's clever.
Also, never wasn't so patient, so you needed it.
So your answer is yes.
Do you think I could? I hope so. I found in my life even when they're shining.
Shabbat shalom. There was something I will look again. Email is not my greatest strength, but I will look at this. I will look to see what. Or do you do text? Yeah. Well, I'm happy with this. But I will. I'm not. That email is not my greatest strength. Isn't to excuse that I can reply in life. So I will look at my email. I will look at my email. Well, that's what I thought I remembered seeing, and I will. It's entirely reasonable to want that. It's entirely reasonable to want that.
I know that even the Sunday morning session.
Right, so they're in transition at a difficult time because they don't even have an in-person director of the Hebrew school.
Well, this is a woman I hadn't even heard of, Ariel, I think.
I think she's from Toronto, if I'm not mistaken. Hi, Malachi, good to see you again. How you doing? Hey, you know what? Me too. I'm good at sleeping. Really, I'm very, very good at it. Embarrassingly good.
Plus you get a lot of practice.
It was interesting. Stacy did, I think, on the Valley years ago, and they were reading some of his autobiography. And then to hear the recent passing, and I agree with you. He really didn't say it was wrong. It was just the environment was such we had to do it because the country would fall apart.
Or it didn't work out as well as we had hoped, kind of was the message.
But you think you're right, public health said it was wrong.
What they did to was not good. It was not right. Shabbat shalom.
We'll try to get him every few weeks. It's too much to ask him here every week, but
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
What's,
Didn't get a chance to say it to you on the front end, so we're gonna get it to you on the back end.
Exactly, exactly. On the back, give it to me on the back end.
I'm in a lot of poetry about the Jacob Esau.
About what?
Jacob and Esau.
Oh, Jacob and Esau. Yeah, of course. Of
Because
course.
everybody treats them as if they were identical twins, with their half of the same egg, okay? But they were fraternal twins.
No, they were correct. I mean, you can't have such outstanding physical differences and be identical.
Right, right. So, you know, there is room, a lot of room for different personalities. And you see it all the time.
And he has 25 at least personalities.
There you go. So he knows what he's talking about.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm pushing to 30 so I can do a different one a day.
Perfect.
But I'm not quite there yet, and I keep getting off schedule. So.
And the months that have 31 days are going to be a
Oh, forget about it. Like all my pills that I get, okay? They give you a 30-day or a 60-day or 90 days.
Yeah.
What about the months with 28 and the months with
Exactly.
31? I mean, hell, you're either short or you're...
Have you heard the riddle, how many months have 30 days?
What?
How many months have 30 days?
6, I think.
All of them.
No,
Except
one
for
more
December.
time.
11 up there. That's very clever. I like that.
I'm at 28.
That's cute.
Yeah.
Well, that's better, yeah.
Do you have a Gmail account?
I do.
Because I got a strange email that was supposedly from your Gmail account.
But not that strange email. It was some spam about a week ago. No, that's not mine.
I didn't think so, because it was like very, very kind of, it wasn't like straightforward. It was like, I hope you're doing well spiritually or something. And they were trying to usurp your title as rabbi.
Right. So and in fact, the Gmail account, I never send email on it. The only thing I use it for is the Google Calendar. So my personal Gmail account, that's all I use it for. I never send a single
Right, I
email
figured.
from that account.
I
So
really got it.
personally, I use a Yahoo